So before we start this video, I just want to say that there are some quite heavy spoilers for a certain subplot in Mass Effect Andromeda and its subsequent novel, Nexus Uprising. So before we start, we thought we'd give you a final warning. And if you're ready to go, let's start. So this time we're going to be looking at a theory in a slightly different way. First, let me introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Rima from MEOdyssey, and today I have Ash here.
Hello.
Hello. And we're going to look at one of Mass Effect Andromeda's mystery, a murder mystery.
Ooh.
I know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a murder case to you that I think you're definitely unfamiliar with because you haven't actually done a lot of this mission in-game, and look at the evidence around the crime and the events around the crime, and of course suspects, like any typical murder mystery, and we'll just look at what conclusions we can get from that. And most of this information comes from the game itself, as well as Nexus Uprising the novel, and some forum posts. So are you ready to go?
As ready as I'm ever going to be. I have the whole point of this was I have no idea what's going on, and I don't. So I'm completely clueless at this point. So let's have some fun.
Cool. So what I'll do is I will summarize the familiar points of the murder mystery, the case, basically. Okay, and then we'll go over the timeline of the events, some evidence, and then of course the suspects, and then we can kind of discuss who we think may have done the deed, or so. I don't know. We'll maybe put some spooky music over it. I don't know. Okay, cool. So we're going to pretend this is actually a real life case and the game isn't a game. So it's current day Mass Effect Andromeda in 2819, and Ryder, either Sarah or Scott Ryder, is searching through their father's memories through Sam, through the Ryder's family secrets quest or mission line. And Ryder stumbles upon a quite alarming secret regarding the founder of the Andromeda Initiative and the idealist billionaire Gian Garson. Have you done any of that mission yet so far?
Not in the slightest, no.
Cool. Okay. So what you actually find out is the initiative was actually being funded by a mysterious benefactor codenamed Fulcrum, and that Garson was very unsure and even scared of who this person or people could be. And that Jen Garson was actually not killed by the Scourge when they entered Andromeda, but was actually murdered under the guise of the Scourge. Ooh.
Moiter.
Yeah, I know, those are weirder.
Moiter the vert.
But the main question is, who killed her? Well, that's kind of the answer we want to try and solve through these kind of discussion. And maybe we should kind of start at the beginning. So Jan founded the initiative in 2176 in order to explore the outside realms of the Milky Way and further into the Andromeda galaxy and expand humanity's knowledge. However, the project became it became so big that she couldn't actually comprehend what to do. She completely ran out of money, and she was a billionaire, by the way, so she completely ran out of money, and she turned to a mysterious benefactor for funding, and she didn't know who they were. The benefactor was willing to help her fund this kind of organization, however asked for some specific conditions, including the addition of 100,000 colonists to the Arks and expanding the project massively. So she didn't expect it to be so big, but they were like, you need to add 100,000 colonists to your mission. And there was also a reason behind this, and he gave her a reason later on, which we'll discuss later.
Okay.
Following so far?
Just about, yes.
Okay. So in 2186, the four Arks and the Nexus started their 600-year journey or so to the Andromeda Galaxy. However, in 2818, is that how you say it?
Sounds about right, yes.
Yeah. The Nexus landed in Andromeda, and it hit the Scourge immediately, which is when our mystery kind of unfolds. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. So this is the events that kind of occurred. The Nexus hits the Scourge, causing massive damage to the Nexus itself, leading the colonists waking up and finding their surroundings basically crumbling upon them. There's massive damage to the Nexus. There's explosions, fires, just panic. Sloane Kelly, who at the time was the head of Nexus security, helps crew members out of their pods and then tries to go and find Gian Garson. She scrambles to find her because she's always looked up to Jen Garson, and she's basically just really, really panicked. She wants to find her. She scrambles and she runs into other people along the way, including a man named Chen, who's a janitor, who's awake but also really, really, really panicked. He's wearing a tattered uniform, he's got burns all over himself, consistent to what we assume is the Scourge. And then she later on runs into a dying Asari further on, who speaks of strange events that have created all this massive damage. She then makes her way to Jen's cryopod, only to find Foster Addison standing there, the head of Colonial Affairs, and I think everyone's probably met Foster Addison, right?
Yes.
Fish eyes or whatever.
Her face is tired.
It's better now, though, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Addison claims that the rest of the leadership are in the operations headquarters and that she's looking out for Jen as well. She's trying to find her. As they had been working together while evaluating the initial data when they awoke, but then Jen just left. When questioning why Addison was looking for her at the cryo chamber, Addison stated that she was, quote, needing the restroom. And Addison seems really confused and really irregular, just unusual. But Kelly seems to think that possibly this is because she maybe has a concussion, because she seems injured, and she's got loads of cuts on her. Some are old and some are new. Unable to find Jen, Kelly and Addison make their way to operations. It's not till 27 hours later, arriving in Andromeda, that they actually find Jen's body, when crew members are searching room for room, and they take her body to a makeshift morgue. Okay?
She didn't, because the only bit I kind of grasped from that was the fact that at some point someone needed to go to the toilet. She didn't do an Elvis and get found on the toilet, did she?
No. So basically, Sloane Kelly is looking for Jen Garson, and she ends up going to Jen Garson's cryopod chamber, where they're all found in the cryopods, and she finds Foster Addison there.
Right.
And when she's asking Foster, like, why are you here? Foster's like, oh, I'm looking for Jen. We were together, and then she just left, and now I'm looking for her too. And then when Sloane Kelly's like, well, if you're looking for her when you were together, why did you come back to her cryo chamber? Because she'd be awake. And she's like, well, I'm looking for the restroom. Okay, so that's just weird, okay? And it's not until 27 hours later, until they're kind of repairing and kind of assessing the situation, that someone actually finds her body and is brought to the makeshift morgue. Okay?
So at this point, Addison has somehow, whether toiletry needs or not, implicated herself in the death of Jen Garson.
We'll move on to that later,
okay.
Yes. Okay, so here is some evidence to kind of go along with the crime. And this is what was gathered from the day itself and after, when Ryder's actually investigating more than a year later on. So Jen's body was badly burnt. It was charred. It was very difficult to actually make the identification. This was primarily because it was thought to be caused by the scourge that caused a massive burning. And a lot of the other crew members did also have burns and things like that. So they assumed that she had died basically being burnt to death. It's also noted that her body had a really awful smell. She had decomposition, basically. And they quote that she smelled like rot. So it's likely that her body had maybe been sitting for several hours, maybe. When Sam is scanning the room, it identifies that there was another person in that room standing over her body, which was lying on the bed, which I can show you as well. I've got a video for that. Okay. Ryder also finds a hidden room attached to the apartment where her body was actually found that seems to be installed prior to the Nexus actually leaving the Milky Way, when it was actually being built. In this hidden room, she kind of went and hid because she was afraid of her life. And you find audio logs that kind of show that she'd been hiding in this room since the arrival into Andromeda, because she felt that there was someone after her, and that she decided that she wanted to actually input some secret information into the VI that you find in the cultural center. There's that holographic version of herself that kind of gives you information. She states in the audio log that basically she's put some information into that VI to give more information. She also shows great concern for Alec Ryder, worrying that he's also been targeted by these mysterious people too. And she says that she can't say anymore, but that she can hear her attacker or attackers coming for her, and that they're in the hydroponics just along the way from the apartment. And then it cuts off. Okay. You go and speak to her VI, okay? And in that, Jen seems very worried about these mysterious benefactors, and calls them Fulcrum. She's never met them face to face, and Jen and Alec are definitely very cautious of their intentions, and they're also very much eager to move so many people to Andromeda, and that's why they're really concerned. So, are you following so far?
Yes.
Yes, okay, cool. You decide to kind of look more into this. So, further on, when you're discovering Alec's memories, you also discover that he's also very, very worried about these benefactors. There's not much kind of given about who they are, but here's some information about them that would kind of makes their situation a bit more intriguing. So, in one of Alec's memories, you see him speaking to a Citadel security officer Castus Vicarian. It's Garrus's dad.
Hey.
He was friends with Garrus's dad.
Yeah.
And his dad's basically telling him about Garrus's adventures with Shepard and the fact that they are talking about the Reapers, and that Shepard is very much worried about the Reapers, and Garrus seems to very much strongly believe that the Reapers do exist. Hence why Castus is now speaking to Alec Ryder about this. And Alec Ryder has approached Castus to get some information before they head off to Andromeda. Castus basically says that even though the Council are openly saying that the Reapers do not exist, they're hidden underneath it all, they're actually starting to get information that possibly the Reapers do exist, and they are actually worried about a possible threat. Cool?
Yes.
Yes. So they're liars. They made Shepard look so bad, and they're like, maybe secretly they're like, yes, maybe Reapers. They know that, yes, Reapers. He totally believed it. Then you also speak to... you get to speak to the benefactors when you see in Alec's memory. And you never get to see them. They do this thing where they keep switching between different faces of different races and things like that, trying to hide their identity.
Okay.
But the benefactor makes really strong hints that they are aware that there is a threat, and they've believed in a threat long before Shepard actually encountered anything on Eden Prime. And that they've had inklings of a massive threat looming onto the Milky Way. And but they didn't have any evidence until Shepard actually encountered Sovereign. So that's all the info that we've got regarding the evidence surrounding Jane's death. But let's kind of look at the suspects and kind of see who everyone could be. So, have you got any questions about the evidence so far?
All I want to say is that there is shady business going on.
Business.
All I'm getting is... And as soon as you said Fulcrum, the only thing I could think of immediately was Fulcrum from Chuck. So
yeah.
I'm thinking it's just a far off future version of them, which kind of makes them seem a little bit less scary, if I'm honest. But I'm pretty sure it's not them. I'm sure they're very scary people. But yeah, it does seem like Jen, in all of her infinite wisdom and billionaireness, well, up until she lost all the money putting it into the initiative. And went flat broke, apparently. Went into shady business. And it just seems shady all along, let's be honest. Yeah? The whole thing seemed weird. And the fact that you mentioned like there was only going to be a small thing until these people said, no, we get 100,000 of each one. It's like, really? They're probably going to send like 20 people. And then, no, we'll send like 400, 500,000
Well,
people.
yeah, the idea from what it seems like what Jen was planning was that she wanted basically to send not a skeleton crew, but a very basic crew of just explorers and soldiers to kind of scout out the Andromeda Galaxy first before they sent anyone else along.
Yeah.
But the benefactors were pushing her, and one of their criteria were that you have to send a total of 100,000 people all together added on to the mission so that they would then fund it then. And possibly it's hinting that maybe they were aware of a threat coming to the Milky Way, and it seems that maybe that's why they were trying to shove as many people to the Andromeda Galaxy as they could.
Okay. Right.
So we ready to look at all the suspects? Okay. There's a few. There's not a huge list, but there are a few. So there are certain characters you can kind of rule out from contention, like Tan, who's the like snidey Solarian, now head of the Andromeda Initiative. You can rule him out because he was actually asleep at the time of all of this, and he actually gets awoken by Sloane Kelly and Kesh, basically to inform him that he is now basically next in line to take over once they find Jen's body.
Okay.
You can also kind of so he's out of the ruling.
Director Tan is out as far as we're aware.
As far as we're aware, yes.
Okay.
And he's also very bemused. He thinks people are playing a joke on him when he gets told the first time. He's like, you're joking, right? You're pulling a prank on me. Because he doesn't actually believe anything that they tell him at the beginning. But, yeah. Also, Spender, who's Addison's very shady and asshole-less assistant dude. He's also in cryo at the time of all these events, and he's not woken up until the hierarchy is established. So he's asleep as well. So I guess you can kind of rule him out as well. Okay? Then you also have Tyrion Kandros, who is actually awake when Sloane Kelly rescues him. She rescues him from a pod that's failing, and she manages to actually get him out. And then she assigns him to rescue other people. So at that point, he's trapped in a cryotube trying to escape. So we assume that he didn't have enough time to go kill Jen Garson and get himself back in a tube. So we'll kind of rule out Tyrion Kandros as well. Even though his background is also a bit elusive as well.
Yeah.
Because we know that Tyrion was actually brought into the Nexus hierarchy because Sloane left, and we also know that he actually infiltrated the Andromeda Initiative as part of the Turian military. So he's not got the greatest background, but we can assume that he didn't actually nearly kill himself trying to get himself back into a cryotube. So
That's fair.
Yeah, we'll rule him out.
Yeah.
We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. So far, from my knowledge, and people can probably add on suspects if they want in the comments, because I may have missed stuff, there are three possible groups of suspects. So the first one is clearly Foster Addison.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
She's super defensive when Sloane asks her about why she was at the cryopod. She gives the weirdest and weakest answer about being needing to go to the restroom. Though Sloane's idea that possibly she's concussed is quite good because she does have a head injury, she's just very unusual and like really abrasive. But Sloane does point out that Foster Addison's always abrasive, so it's very hard to judge if she tells you the truth, and that's one of the points that Sloane actually makes in the novel itself, that she can't tell when Addison's being genuine or not. It's also noted that she does have injuries, not only fresh ones but also older ones that can't be placed. So whether she'd been out of the cryopods for long enough to get injured a couple hours earlier and then also get injured on the way maybe to find Jen. So there's inconsistent injuries. There's also the point when they can't find Jen Garson. It's actually Foster that brings up the point that the most important thing for them to do. So Kesh and Sloane are talking about how they need to get everything back up and running, establish security. The first thing Foster says is priority, establish the line of ascension to figure out who's going to be in charge next.
So she went straight from the welfare of the people to, I want to sort out who's boss and who isn't.
Pretty much. That's the first thing she says. Also in the novel, you get different perspectives from different characters. You get Sloane and Kesh. One of the people you don't get the perspective of is Foster Addison. You never get to see her internal thoughts as well in the novel. So you don't really know what she's thinking throughout any of the events of the novel itself. So we don't really know what's going on in her head. So that's Foster Addison. Okay. The other suspects could be the other various awoken crew members. You've got that janitor who seems really panicked and is stumbling across the Nexus that Sloane runs into. She makes a point of saying that of all the people that got woken up, the Nexus automatically woke up the leadership, and it automatically woke up like the science crew to figure out where they were and establish that, and it unlocked the security team. But Sloane makes a point of, why did it wake up the janitor?
Because things have to be clean.
Well, yeah. Well, after the scourge, yeah, things will definitely need to be cleaned.
It's going to be a hell of a clean-up job, so they need the clean-up crew to come in. Who better than the janitor? I think the janitor's innocent, so I think it's pigeonholing. So
he was like panicked, and he did obviously have burns, so he was awake when the scourge hit. And obviously he didn't seem to be able to give them any kind of cohesive answer. So that's possibly a suspect.
Because he was scared and panicked.
We're just listing the people who could have done it, okay?
I'm defending the janitor to the death.
We've also got the dying Asari crew member. Now she's actually found out to be one of the science team that was initially woken up, who's then supposedly killed by the scourge. And then she's barely coherent when Sloane finds her, but she kind of makes a point of saying that they weren't attacked by any aliens, that something strange happened. And at that point, Sloane doesn't understand what she means, but she's clearly making a point that it's possibly, obviously the scourge that's attacked the Nexus, and the Asari is trying to tell her it's like a weird phenomenon. But she was awake and probably walking around during the time that Jen Garson was also running to that apartment. So whether she saw something or she was involved is unknown. But she died, so we don't know any more about her. Okay. The last one, and probably, in my opinion, the most, well, not obvious, most likely one, is the fact that the benefactor was involved in her death. That either they're on board or they've hired someone to kill her. Because she was clearly scared of them and what they could do. And it just seems that she, when you talk about most murder mysteries and you're like, were they afraid of someone or something like that, it always tends out to be that person that they're being threatened by.
Yeah.
And it seems that the benefactor has enough of a reach to not only hide their identity, but fund something that a billionaire couldn't fund, to send them all the way to the Andromeda galaxy. Plus, they have knowledge of things that even Shepard didn't know until they encountered Eden Prime. So they're a powerful entity. So I thought I'd tell you a bit more about the benefactor, or any more evidence I could gather on them, to see if we could work out who they were. So there's a term fulcrum that Alec and Jen both use to describe the benefactor, and the definition of a fulcrum is the point at which a bar or something is balancing or supported or balanced. So it's basically like a center focal point, or the main thing a person or something that is needed to support something to make it work or happen. So that's basically what fulcrum was to Jen. It was something that allowed her to allow the Andromeda initiative to actually carry on. So they saved her ass in the end, didn't they?
Yeah.
But the question is who the benefactor could be. So you never get the identity of them, and you don't get a huge amount of clues about who they are. But there are some theories. Obviously, the first one that everyone thinks of is possibly Cerberus. Like the benefactors, Cerberus have a lot of money that they could definitely fund the Andromeda initiative. They definitely believe the Reapers were a threat, and were one of the only ones that really believed Shepard as well. They're also very interested in AI, and there's points in Alec's memories where the benefactors do state that they can help Alec develop the AI further that could help his wife survive. And we only know of a few people that are that interested in AI, and Cerberus could be one of them. But the only question is, why would Cerberus push... Let's say, for a funny point, Cerberus know about the Reapers. They definitely want to try and have a last-ditch attempt to getting people out of the Milky Way in case the Reapers do invade. Why would they demand that you would send 100,000 people, and most likely allow you to send that many of the different races as well? Why would you not just say send 100,000 humans across?
But then that's just assuming that they'll be Cerberus and they're still pro-human.
That's
So
true.
whereas your initial analogy before of them saying, oh, take as many as you can of each different race, seems more like in keeping with the term arcs, because it's saving not so much two of every kind, but it's saving as many of the more important species as possible. So that kind of lends me to think that they sound shady at the beginning, but they're trying to save more people from a potentially impending threat, i.e. the Reapers, and then giving Jen Carson the money to be able to make these ships bigger, to be able to take more people. So they sound more good than bad at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Your next person possibly could be the Shadow Broker, also hugely rich, have a massive information network, and we know that the Shadow Broker changes. It's not the same person all the time. We know that Liara takes the mantle on at the end of the trilogy. There's the Yag probably the start of the trilogy, but we know there was another Shadow Broker prior to the Yag that owned the Yag, and then obviously the Yag murdered the dude. But it's possible that the Shadow Broker, with their information and their funds, and they also use that same style of communication where they kind of hide their face and their voice and do that weird spy distortion thing that alludes to the fact that they possibly could be the benefactor. And we don't know the motivations of the Shadow Broker because it changes with each Shadow Broker. So for all we know, the initial Shadow Broker that did this could be someone that really wanted to save everyone. And this was in 2176, so we assume that Liara did not take the mantle at that point because that was during the trilogy. So whoever this was clearly wanted to help the Milky Way's population survive the Reapers or whatever threat they thought was coming. So could it be the Shadow Broker? I don't know.
Potentially.
That's the question. My last kind of suspect for who the benefactor could be is actually the Council, because I figured they would also have a lot of money, a lot of resources, and they probably have the most motivation to actually save as many people as they could, in the sense that it's their basic job to protect the Milky Way as a whole. They also couldn't actively support Shepard, but there is obviously that line that everyone wanted to kind of hark on about when the arc theory was a thing, with the Asari's term of, I can't remember the exact line, I'll put it in the video, but is it so unlikely that the council didn't... The council possibly did believe them enough to maybe fund the Andromeda Initiative in secret? And as we know from Castus Vicarian, they were slightly starting to doubt their own kind of denial of the thing early on.
Yeah.
So could they have actually funded Jen's project?
The only thing I'd say in opposition to that is the fact that not only have you had the problem where the Citadel got almost destroyed in Mass Effect 1, and they would have had to spend a sizable amount of resources getting that rebuilt and probably restaffing a lot, because I assume people died during that attack. Just assuming. But then... Because I'm trying to think, because they left right after the events of Mass Effect 2. How soon is it between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3? What's the time frame there?
Not a lot.
Is it like...
It's within like the same year, basically.
Okay.
So basically after Mass Effect 2, Shepard gets put into incarceration a few months after the Arrival DLC, and it's literally like a month or two after that they're like, it's within the same year, because Mass Effect 3's events happen at the end of 2186.
Okay, so a safe guess would be between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, 6 to maybe 8 months ish.
Yeah.
Being kind. Okay. So yes, that's all kind of close together. Having a major project, leaving to go to a different galaxy, and then have the Reapers come and attack, and basically Earth's destroyed, the Citadel's destroyed.
We were assuming, so they leave in 2186.
Yes.
But let's be aware that Jen Garson had founded the thing in 2176.
Okay, that's true.
And the benefactors apparently have known about a massive threat for a lot longer than... Oh, my phone's buzzing. A lot longer than when Shepard actually discovered the Prothean beacon on Eden Prime. And that was, 2183? So they've had a little bit of leeway to kind of know something's coming. And if whoever the benefactor is decided to approach, and it doesn't state when Jen was approached by the benefactors, say they knew well in advance that they approached, and she had the idea, basically. I think the Nexus was already going in some form. It's basically they added on the attachment that you had to take on 100,000 people with you. Is basically just plowing loads of money and resources into something that was already basically a skeleton.
Here's a theory to your theory.
Here's a counter theory.
Yes. What if Fulcrum is an amalgamation or like a conglomerate of each different one? So maybe the Shadow Broker, the Council, Cerberus, in some way. Maybe they're all involved as Fulcrum, as coming together. That's all I'm saying.
Oh.
Because one single resource is less than 3 separate, very large resources. So maybe all 3 of them came together. But maybe one of them, Cerberus, got shitty, didn't like what was going on, and then sent people to kill Jen Garson. That sounds like Cerberus to me. So maybe it's an amalgamation of all 3 of them, or maybe a few more. But one of them didn't like what was going on, or didn't like something in particular that happened, and then went after the person who came to them for the money in the first place, which was, of course, the face of the initiative, Jen Garson. So, theory to a theory.
Theory to a theory.
Boom.
Well, I've got 2 other mini suspects to add on to the end of this.
Okay.
So basically, there's also the other option that none of the characters we've talked about are the actual murderer. It could be someone that was hired by the benefactor. It could also be someone that woke up and killed her. And we know that it's really easy to smuggle things aboard the Nexus and the Arcs, as all the characters in Mass Effect Andromeda have clearly made it. You can smuggle random people. You can smuggle couches. You can also smuggle. And I don't know. We already told people there's a spoiler. You can smuggle Ellen Ryder, who's supposedly dead, onto the bloody Hyperion. Yeah. So you can smuggle anything onto those ships. So is it possible that there's somebody that we don't even know aboard the Hyperion and is still aboard the Arcs or the Hyperion or just wandering around on the Nexus that is a murderer who wasn't even meant to be there? Is another point. And the last theory is the fact that Jen possibly isn't even dead. It's stated that her body was really, really badly damaged. It was really hard to identify. Addison, Kesh, and Sloan did make the identification, but Sloan makes the point of that it was her eyes that kind of made them think it was actually her. But it's possible that she was so badly decomposed and burnt that it wasn't even her. Is it possible that she's actually alive? You never get to see a body. Like Alec Ryder, you never get to see a body. And it's possible that Alec Ryder, it's presumed that Alec Ryder is dead. But is it possible both of them are alive still?
Maybe.
For the fact...
Yeah, I was going to say, because if they're running away from Fulcrum, maybe they have to fake their own death somehow. So.
And maybe she knew something was going to happen to her. She created a secret, like, room in that apartment for a sole purpose, I assume, of hiding, because she knew. She clearly made the trip to Andromeda, and as soon as she awoke, the first thing she did was run to that room and try to hide. She knew that something was coming with her that she didn't want. And she assumed that Alec had been killed as well along the way, because she can't get in touch with him, and she's, like, panicked that she can't get in touch with him. So it's possible that Jen actually faked her own death, and it's going to be a storyline for DLC, possibly.
Ooh.
So, yeah. That is the murder mystery of the Nexus. Ooh.
Interesting. That was a lot more in-depth than I thought.
Yeah. There's a lot of evidence there.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah. Do you want to nail down your suspect before we go?
I definitely think Addison is fishy, to say the least. She definitely seems like the kind of person who would, like, if pushed, would do anything to make her way to the top. And then Director Tan becomes the top person anyway, so that must have pissed her off. So Addison's definitely got some questions to answer. Other than that, it's definitely not the janitor. I'm sorry, it's not. I defend the janitor with all my heart and soul.
I like the fact that if they were doing this investigation, you just have a sign be like, "Free the janitor."
I've got my placard like on one of the on the Nexus after everyone's arrived, and I'm like,
as far as if it makes you feel better,
it.
As far as I can tell, the janitor is never suspected by Sloane, so we can say that you're okay. You're okay. The janitor doesn't get implicated, but he's there. So,
okay.
How do you know he's not a sleeper agent for the benefactor?
I don't, but I'm just assuming.
Okay.
And having a lot of faith in one person.
There's one janitor.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. It seems very hard to nail down one particular suspect, although it does seem that what is more viable is that, and it's normally like I normally go like one simple, one crazy theory in these kind of things. The simple theory is that someone from this Fulcrum company or whatever basically didn't like something that she'd done or something that had happened, and yes, did send someone to kill her. That seems the most obvious thing, because I don't think anyone really would have done anything that kind of strong, especially when they just arrived. But my conspiracy theory mind, shooting off into the distance now, basically leads me to think that both Alec and her are still alive. They fake their death to be able to get away from whoever's coming.
Well, it's the one thing that's really weird is the fact that, like, it doesn't tell you how she was murdered. It just says that she was
burnt.
She was burnt, and it was presumed to be the Scourge. But possibly was she killed before that, and then the Scourge obviously burnt up her body. But how lucky are those murderers that the Scourge came along to do that? It also seems to be that she did this before everyone else awoke from the Scourge attack. So she was awake. She somehow managed to awaken or just awake before they actually hit the Scourge, which caused the rest of the people to wake up. And she wandered around and hid first, and then the attackers also awoke at the same time. Seems very odd, but yeah. So that's that. I want to say some few thanks. I did want to thank Fogg, who's on the the unofficial BSN that's now there for the fans.
Yes.
Because he made a really awesome, or he or she made a very awesome thread regarding this, that he's got people being internet sleuths, and there was some information in there that was quite useful that I didn't pick up when I did the reading of the book the first time. So thanks to them. But I would love to know what people think, who they think possibly could have killed Jane Garson. It'd be very interesting to know if anybody else has any other suspects that we kind of missed. Yeah, let's have a debate in the comments, and if you like this, yeah, I would love to know if there's anyone I missed, because I think possibly anybody could have done it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there you go. But if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video to help the channel grow. And we will look forward to seeing you next time. Hopefully we'll have another juicy gaming mystery or story to tell next time.
Ooh.